Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to Megan Powers. You're here on the Tim and Jim show today, but unfortunately, my co host Tim is sick. The family out there in Eastern Pennsylvania has been overwrought with whatever goes on in the winter. Keeping our fingers crossed that everybody gets well soon. And excited to have Megan Powers of the Power of Marketing, not to mention the host of the Making a Marketer podcast. So, Megan, welcome today, and it's great to have you. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me on. I'm sad that Tim's not here. I've never even met him. So
yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
I still have never met him. Here we are. So I'm good. I live in San Diego. We've got a little thing descending upon our fine city here in the next couple days.
Yes.
Social media marketing world. And I've lived in San Diego a real long time. Like I moved here to go to college and stayed. I stopped saying numbers because we don't
need to know.
I've had my company Powers Marketing for 6.5 years now. And the podcast is in its 3rd season. I also have another podcast, since we're talking about events today, called Inside Events. So I've recorded episode 8 last week or the week before. And anyway, so it's only 7 episodes are out right now.
And is that one specifically focused on events?
It is.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, make sure if you want, feel free to drop that in the links, because I know I've got friends that work for event companies. I'm sure they can learn a lot from you. So tell us, let's get started. And so I guess question number 1 is, why should businesses consider events in their marketing their business?
Well, it's like anything else. It depends on what you're selling. It depends on what you're doing. It depends, right? But in my experience, and the research shows that when you bring people together face to face, numbers go up, sales go up, people, and it also depends on the kind of company that you are, and what kind of event that you have. But like if you're if you produce software, let's say, you should 100% be having a user group conference, or even user group meetings as a subset of like a larger conference that you all might attend. But I mean, truly, it's another way to elevate your brand when done right.
No, I'm a huge fan of events. I actually got to help a friend's company. We did an event. They were the event planner for the Veterans Administration, and there were a ton of businesses there, and you can't beat it, right? I mean, I'm actually going to be in San Diego for this big conference that you're talking about, because you can't beat meeting people face to face. And I think that's what people forget about social and about marketing, right? You ultimately want to build fans, friendships, and I think, I don't think events will ever go away, because I think we just, humans want to deal with humans.
For sure. I mean, there was a pretty dark time between 08, 09, and even into 10, where companies were, there were some claims of boondoggles and different things. So it's on the meetings and events industry too, to do a better job with their PR and explaining all of the positive things. And there's a coalition called Meetings Mean Business, and they do research that's not sponsored by a corporation that's going to benefit from it. They are doing research to show the value of meetings and events on the economy too, to take it a step further, right? Like it's on the trickle down effect in the cities that are having these events, that are holding these events, is pretty remarkable. And actually, we're with this coronavirus, or we're in another really tricky time. So
that's definitely had an impact. I mean, there's been a couple events that have canceled. I think that's been more so because a lot of the vendors, from what I saw, were actually Chinese companies, and a lot of maybe Asian travelers. But I mean, it, I don't think it's a reason to cancel everything. At least I'm still getting on the plane on Friday.
Right, right. Well, it really the biggest one is Mobile World Congress that got canceled, and it basically got canceled because, like you say, like all the major manufacturers around which this show is built were exhibiting and pulling out, and so then it comes a point where, while it makes me super sad, I totally get it from an event organizer standpoint, because there's no show if you don't have the thing that's central to your, because that's not real. There's some education maybe that happens at that, but it's a trade show. It's like the CES for just mobile.
Right.
But I'm bummed for the city of Barcelona, because man, that's a huge hit. Like hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue lost for that event not happening.
Right, because it's not just the fact of the event, but it's the hotels, it's the people going out and enjoying the shops and the culture and everything else that really is. Events create all these different things. I mean, even like and I won't mention the game because I know you're probably still in pain, but these sporting events, right? When they're big events, there's even the build up before that. So I mean, it's just you don't always think about how one small event can do so many things, even if the event itself is only for a day or two.
For sure. No question. Taxi driver, housekeeper, food servers. Yeah,
Yeah.
it affects everybody.
So, what are some of the options for a business if they can't host an event?
So I like this question because I like to emphasize to people too that holding events is important, but attending events is also important. So if you are, whatever industry or niche that you're in, you can attend the larger shows or the association shows that are associated with the niche that you're in. Professional associations are huge, and if you're not involved in your professional association, do that. And those have smaller events, but also you can exhibit, you can sponsor. I know that there are several companies having what I call what tertiary events, or spin-off events before and after this large social media marketing world conference. But also they're hosting drinks and parties, and so long as it doesn't interfere with the host conference, the main gig, you don't want to step on the toes of the company having the big meeting or event. But those are great ways to get your brand seen, and this also speaks to kind of the I talk about the nurturing. We're nurturing relation. We're meeting people online. Like I had never met you in person until last year's World, but we knew each other online. And so then you meet in a person. It's like, oh, hey, you kind of feel like you already kind of know the person. Well, that's the opportunity that, large or small, that meetings and events bring. So you can have a happy hour, or we used to call them tweet ups. Right. So where we would actually meet in person, those people who we normally only see on Twitter, which is super fun.
That's right. And Twitter is not dead for everyone out there.
Not even close.
Yes, it's going to be very active with the hashtag SMMW20 for the next several days. So if you want to learn about social media or even learn about events, in fact, you use a couple of hashtags in regards to events. What are a couple of those that you like to use?
Well, the gold standard is event profs. And that was started, years since hashtags were a thing. That's been a thing. And so I always give advice to my clients and to people who are trying to be seen within that space. Use the hashtag event profs, and that'll help you get visibility. Also, event tech. I'm kind of a tech head, and within this space, I do some planning, but tech is my jam. I used to sell audiovisual production and work with event technology companies. I still do. The podcast, the Inside Events podcast that I host is sponsored by, this company hired me to host it. app company called Swapcard.
Right. That's very cool. And so, and actually, too, while we're talking about it, if a business can't host an event, even too, it's important. And I don't know if we could go into this. We may more, but I think events need to have an event hashtag.
Oh, for
And
sure.
I see so many events that they don't do that, even if it's a local event. If you're going to be doing stuff on Twitter or Instagram or even LinkedIn now, you're really missing an opportunity for people to find your content after the fact by looking for that hashtag.
Yeah, huge. And this is like I start out saying, first thing, get on the same page as your marketing. Like if events or the possibility of events doesn't live in marketing already, which crazily enough it doesn't. In some, like in associations, sometimes they work in silos. The event team is the event team and the marketing team. So get on the same page, have a strategy. What are you trying to accomplish? Like, is it we just want to get 100 people there? Is it we want to make $1 million? Like what's the goal of the event? And visibility and branding can be part of that, obviously, right? But lay those out and then create a hashtag and do good research. Make sure that someone else isn't already using it, because I tell you what, there's some hashtags that I've seen that are like super off brand that, event organizers didn't check out. So, and then if you get a strong enough foothold on it, then I personally think you don't need to have the year on there. That's just my personal opinion. There's some disagreement on that, but I think if you're building a community, if you have this online experience that you are taking offline and bringing people face to face, then having a hashtag around that can be used year round is super smart.
That's a really interesting. I never really thought of it that way, but that's a really good point, because I know sometimes too, like people when they'll create this hashtag, they didn't even really create it because they add, like, instead of saying just 20, they'll want to say 2020 because I don't know, the thing will be around in 100 years and somebody will not know the difference. But
That's funny. I think, you know what? Actually, what's behind that is a poor job by the event organizer in not getting the word out on what it is, because you'll see that, like, actually, I was just told, so this will be my 7th world, but this will be my first time on staff. And so, yeah, we're going to be looking at 20 and 2020. Now, in this case, you're just not paying attention.
right.
But some people will do both or whatever. Yeah. So it's a good idea if you're, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when you're monitoring your hashtag during your conference or meeting or event or whatever, to have a listening filter for
Right.
alternatives like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think there's certain types of events that fare better than others for businesses?
Again, it depends on, what lane you're in. It depends on what you're doing. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I think that if you're if you're trying to sell an online course and it's not selling, and you have this brilliant idea to have a summit, or have a if your content sucks online, it's going to suck offline. So that's just kind of
Really?
that's my thing with that. No, but right, everyone's trying to have their own B school, and there's so much going on around that. So I think, again, this kind of goes back to, like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to bring your users together? Are you trying to bring your sales team together? Because truly, this is anything, right? Like, if you aren't having a national sales meeting, if you're not getting all of your salespeople together in the same place, you're missing the boat. If you're not incentivizing them, incentive trips is still a thing, and there's a lot of research out there that says that companies that have incentive programs, that these boondoggle packages, which is one of the things that, like, these people sold millions and millions of dollars for this company, and they were getting a pat on the back because that was the goal for them, like to hit a certain number. And then, the media gets a hold of media can ruin anything, right?
Right.
Media gets a hold of it. They say marketers ruin everything. Like, I think media is doing a pretty fair job of that these days.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so all those, any of those kinds of things are considered events. Even if it's a 1 hour all hands, everything that goes around an event should be involved. The plan, the strategy, what are we trying to accomplish? The planning, the logistics, because that's a part of it too, right? You don't just have a strategy and set a goal and then like show up. You got to actually make it happen.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think it's interesting because they're definitely, you see a lot more of these, like you call them, online summits, and it's interesting. I think some of them, and I think Agora Pulse did a really good job with the ones they've been doing, where they have everything pre-recorded, so you don't run into the tech issues of the person's trying to give their presentation and all of a
Right.
sudden everything goes sideways. And so, do you think there's going to be more of that sort of thing, or you think that's just kind of like the new thing for right now?
I think it's a super easy way. There's a really low barrier of entry,
Hmm.
and you're with throw a bunch of money and marketing behind it, and you'll probably sell. But most of these are doing it for free, right? And then there's
Right.
like upsell if you want to see it 24 hours after after it airs, or if you want
Right.
lifetime access to that content. And I think some of these are doing this in preparation for then taking it offline to see if they can sell the idea of this type of event. But yeah, no, I think it's just really easy
So
to do it.
do you have some favorite events other than the one this weekend?
Yeah, and also just on that, like I being an event professional, uh, who goes to conferences put on by event professionals, right? Like there's no worse job, I think, than the organizer who has to plan the events for the people who are the most critical, right? Who are doing the work. Um, but having said that, World still puts on the best event I attend outside of Meeting Professionals International, Professional Convention Management Association. Well, they also do incredible jobs. So those are two. MPI, the World Education Congress. Right now I'm Vice President Communication for the San Diego chapter of MPI, and we have an annual this year. It's in Texas. PCMA is great, and IMEX. IMEX is I think it stands for International Meetings and Expositions. And they have one in Frankfurt in May and one in Vegas in the fall. It got moved. It's in September now. And that is basically like every destination, every it's huge on, like, we joke, like, I'll meet you in Ireland because there's like the international happy hours going on and they've got Irish dancers. Um, but it's really cool. Huge trade show that has grown year over year since they came to the States, and I think they started having it in Vegas in like, gosh, they just had their 10-year, I
Wow.
think, last year. Anyway, all that to say, it's really good, and that it follows the European model, which is different in the U.S. because we charge you for everything.
Mm.
They allow you to attend these expos at no charge.
Oh,
So, so then that for me has built, there's really great community around. I go there because I want to talk to the vendors that I want to potentially use, destinations where I potentially want to take my meeting. And I think it's good too, like if you're just trying to start getting into meetings and events, that would be a really good one to start with because you don't have to pay for registration, and it's in, Vegas, which is easy to get
right.
to and
That's
stay in.
interesting. Because you don't always think about that, but I know sometimes that's what keeps people from going to events is the ticket price.
Right.
Because on top of that, they're having to pay for their room and board, and they've got to pay for transportation. And so, I think that's sometimes too, like with some of these associations, right? Attempting to find a location that is convenient to a majority of their members, because then everybody's like, well, I'm not going to go, all the way here or there. I can't afford to do that.
Right.
Um, so that's interesting. So the European model is more, you show up, and I guess the vendors in a sense are really sponsoring the conference because they're looking for the people.
For sure, for sure. And actually, there's another, and we probably won't have time to go into this, but hosted buyer programs is something that I see a lot, which I think is really valuable. That so they basically a planner or an event organizer can apply to be a hosted buyer, and their cost of of room and board and getting there and everything is covered by one of the companies that's exhibiting. And so what in exchange they promise to have 20 meetings over the course of 3 days or whatever the number is these days, or whatever, but the idea is that the exhibitors get qualified leads. They get people coming to them, to their booth for an appointment, who they might not have gotten direct access to otherwise. And that those of us who are buying get an opportunity to have set meetings. From what I hear, I have never done it. From what I hear, I've been on the exhibitor side. So I've been on I have, 30 meetings in 3 days with potential customers, but I've never been on the other side. I hear it's kind of hectic running around.
Oh, it sounds like it.
Yeah. 20 minutes, 20 to 6 20-minute meetings in a day, and then they're trying to go to education and stuff. But it's a great program because it's definitely, it serves both sides, assuming the event organizer is there because they're actually looking right for vendors, because you can come into that like I've had, or that they're not just filling a spot,
right?
Because I've had those, you can tell that right away, like they don't really need what we're schlepping.
Right.
Yeah. But I do think I want to say too that in terms of thinking about meetings and events, thinking about it not just as, if you're wanting to hold one, but really being deliberate about how you approach being an attendee too, with your personal brand and your company brand. They should be congruent. What you are online should be what you are offline. But really to like maximize the experience for yourself and for your employer, potentially, if they're the ones paying for you to go, to really set your goals and your plans as an individual as well.
Right. Along those lines of branding, business cards or digital cards?
The great debate. Almost is not quite as bad as GIF or GIF, but I am a writer. I am a tactile person. I'm a tech. I'm a techie also, but I still like a card. And
Me too.
Yeah, there's something about like that, giving that person something, it's not a gift.
It's almost, I guess, this might sound kind of corny, but it's almost like, we talk about know, like, and trust. Well, when I give you my card, that's a little bit of trust transference, that I'm trusting you with my personalized information to connect back with me.
Yeah.
Where, where I just scan it. I don't, it's like, where did it go? Oh, it's somewhere in my phone.
Yeah, right. I met this guy at IMAX last year who is he is creating art with all the business cards that he collects. Wow. So now that it's been a little bit, I want to see where my card ended up on it. But yeah, I like it. I do think the QR code thing is cool, and if I had time, I totally would have a QR code bot business card, but I've run out of time. Right. I got a house guest come in. I got priorities.
Right. So Tim wanted to know, how important is paid versus organic advertising for promoting events?
Hey, I think you should definitely have it as part of your budget. I mean, like anything else, it's people's time, but it also depends on who, because if it's membership based, then you have a captive audience. But if you're trying to bring in people who don't know your brand or don't know about the show, especially if you're just starting out,
Right.
you definitely should do some paid. I am the person who's going to say to do it, and I'm going to tell you to do it. I'm not going to actually be the one that does it myself because I'm not an ads girl.
Right.
But no, yeah, for sure, and be smart with your retargeting. And following. I have had this big show we're attending one year. I had I don't. It seemed like every web page I opened up had 5 different banners on it, like, and I was already going. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, take it easy on the
Right.
on the on the retargeting with banner ads and whatnot. But then for social, for sure. Um,
Right.
and concentrate again on whatever your niche is or whatever the space is that that event is being held in.
Right. And then, do you think events should have a separate mobile app? I hear this all the time. I think it's interesting, but I know sometimes, like, I have to use 3 different apps for because I'm a volunteer. We have a
Oh,
app to keep track of our time, and then the Hoover app. I
right.
think I said, I don't know, Hoover, Hover, right?
Hoover,
Yep, yep.
Hoover, yeah. Like who is
Who?
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then people are going to be on Facebook and Twitter and everything else. So,
Well,
uh,
to be fair, I think once we get on site, very few people will be on Facebook. But I hear you. And the answer is, and I apologize too, because I introduced that mobile app for the volunteers. I introduced that company
oh, that's okay. I think
to
it's a
fill in
good
Nicole.
thing. I think it's
No, it's
good.
really cool, especially when you're managing so many people with staff and volunteers. In It Live is the name of it.
Yes.
Um, and I I think it's essential if your show has any kind of schedule. If there's any like if it's a one stage, I don't think it's that important. If everyone's getting the same content, you can go with a website. Um, but think about like the community that's being built. And if you do it right, I know it kind of a bummer to download and all that kind of stuff, but there's huge benefits for um if your show is the right size to having it. I do think that Hoover is good, like Swapcard is good, and that you don't have to totally download the app every time. Because I have
Hmm.
had that where every year I'm not just updating it, I
Right.
am fully downloading. So with Hoover, at least it's got all the events that you've attended in there, and you just go and
Right.
like do a search.
Yeah, because I've
Um,
used it for other events, and it's kind
yeah,
of nice that it's there, and you can actually have the data, even depending on the host, how long they want to let people have access to it. And I think you bring up a really good point as well. It's like, if you're adding value, I think you got to make sure you're adding value in the app for the
yeah,
people that download it. One of the things I do like about Hoova is that it does allow you to connect with people before you even get there. We
yeah,
already have people setting up meetups, and there's a little bit of gamification. Some of that, I think, is a little funny, but that's just
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Because I think some people have gotten sucked into wanting to be number one on the leaderboard. That's a lot of comments.
Oh my lord. Yeah. That's funny you say that. I'm gonna look because I haven't really I haven't gotten into I have there's 16,000 unread messages in the community for me right now.
I don't think you'll be reading them because I know I won't be.
I don't think so. But they've added night you can filter now based on like which meetups you have joined. So and maybe that was part of it before and I just didn't notice.
Right.
But I think like not all apps are created equal. And I really do think Hoover is one of the better ones. One thing that Swapcard has also is matchmaking. So based on what you've entered in there, it will tell you who you should meet or
Right.
what vendors or what people are like you that you may benefit from meeting, which I think is super cool because I do find as someone who I have clients who I help them with their exhibiting, and I'm the one mining the app for the people that we should meet, right? To
Right.
trying to create that hit list so that I know like when they walk by
Yep.
or we can try to create meetings in advance because that's a big thing too. When you create an environment where you can see who's going, then you can reach out and say, hey, let's do coffee. And if that functionality is in the app too, all the better. Because I mean, that's super cool. I will tell you, how many years have you been going to World?
This is my 3rd year going. I did
Okay.
the first time I did it was virtual.
Okay. So 14 was the first year I went, was the second year it was held. And this at the time, the group was in LinkedIn. So if you were going, you were in this private LinkedIn group. And like organically, someone started saying, I'd like to meet people who go it alone. Like if you're solo in your company, let's get together. And it was this ripple of like, oh, okay, I've got a table for 8. Who wants in on my table? And so from that original thing, there's been several evolutions of and the event organizers are not facilitate. They're just now giving us a place to do it.
Right.
But those guys, I still have good friends. Like I've been in Minneapolis to visit my friend Karen, who I met in 2014, and I'm still friends with Peter Freeman, who I met at that first dinner, many years ago.
And I think that to me is one of the coolest things about events. Christopher Knight wanted to say, what is the best way to put together a local event that is of value?
That's a big question. Because, well, what is value? I see that actually I've been seeing the word value a lot. People pitching me to be on the podcast. I will bring so much value to your listeners. So it depends on what you're trying to do. But I think that be realistic, start small, find out if there's a need.
Right.
Because that's a big thing too. I think surveying people, again, like this is kind of hard to answer, not knowing what kind of event it would be. But generally speaking, if it's a meetup or something, like if it's a 1-day seminar or workshop or whatever, find out from the community if there's some interest, and then advertise it. I will say too, I think Eventbrite, talking about an app that you can keep using, you register for an event in Eventbrite and then you have it, and then your tickets are in that app, which is cool because you don't have to fish through your email or whatever, like for your confirmation. But also Eventbrite, if you use them, will share your event with the public. So if you've registered for an event on Eventbrite and opted in to learn about other events, then there it is.
Yes.
And
that's
that
true.
can help you.
I've been starting to see that. I get emails from them now all the time telling me like, oh, these are some events in your area you might be interested in. And then I think he's wanted to say, do business cards trump virtual cards? Well, I think our 2 votes would be yes. That's probably a good Twitter poll.
Yeah, right. I don't know if they trump them, but and everyone's different. I know some people they'll take a card, they'll connect with you on LinkedIn, and they'll hand it right back to you.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, save this for someone else because I'll just throw it away.
Right.
Kind of a thing. Meantime, I'm doing some spring cleaning right now. I need like stacks and stacks of cards. But here's what I do. This really helps me, especially if you're like in a social environment. I write on that card as quickly as possible where I met them. Nice. I'll write like IMEX 19. So I know that was the show I met them at. And if there's anything memorable to help me remember like what we talked about, and I'll write that on there as well. And then if you have a CRM, which we all should, right? Then you have that information too to put in your CRM in the notes.
Right. And along those lines too, over on LinkedIn, Isabel Moraldo asked, how do you make events memorable?
Oh, that's a huge question.
That's a big question.
Oh man. You start with your participants. If you keep them at the forefront, if your focus is not on making money, but on what you're providing to your participants and the experience that you're giving them. That's the other thing too. I haven't said this yet, but if you consider it an experience and not just an event,
right?
I think that will help frame your brain towards providing something that everyone wins from, right? Because it shouldn't just be you're winning because you're getting money
Mhm.
from that. It should be the attendees are getting what they want. Listen to what your attendees want. If you can crowdsource the content that they want, even better. There's an organization called Hot Dokimazo, and they're the whole thing around them is they put on events that have like very little pre-planned content, and the rest of it is crowdsourced. So everyone shows up and they write on a big post-it what they want to talk about or what they want to learn about, and you indicate whether you're willing to be a facilitator or not. And then all the content is around that,
Right.
what
And
everyone wants to learn and share.
and hopefully I won't get in trouble, but I'm really excited about what we're doing at World this year is attendees are going to write on a sticky note what their goals are for the event, and it's going to be on one side of a goal post. And then when they reach their goal, they come and they move it to the other side, and we're gonna talk to them about how it feels to have accomplished that goal. And I think that's, like you said, that's a great way to get people thinking and engaged. And even there's the scavenger bingo where you go visit the
Scout.
vendors,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so there's so many things you can make it fun. I have found that, and it's like, and I think it's not even, it doesn't have to necessarily be the event organizers, but if you allow for some sort of after the event itself interaction, right? Whether it's meetups or, hey, we're all going to meet at the hotel lobby. Because I've been to a couple events, specifically here in Atlanta, that they were a social media event. I won't say any names, but it was like they had the event and it was kind of like it was from 9 to 5, and then everybody leaves. It's like, well, I didn't get to meet anybody because everybody was just listening to these people talk. And I
Right.
think there's a lot to that, creating an experience. Maybe that's
Absolutely.
the right word.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the people get value in many different ways, right? For some people, it is just the education. It is, what can you teach me? But I would say by and large, 99% of the people also want to connect with people. They want to meet people who are in their tribe. This is another thing to remember, is that you have a community, which is everyone attending your event, but there's also several communities within the larger. Again, depends on the size of the event, but generally speaking, we can serve our attendees and help provide value by giving them opportunities to engage with each other, to meet their tribe. So it's definitely something that you can get feedback from people in advance on what do they find valuable, and then listening, actually listen to what they're saying, listen to the social sentiment throughout, when looking at, hopefully you're going to repeat the event, and survey them and listen and actually do, like, I think Phil Mershon is really good at, he's been really good over the years at really listening at what people think and what they want and what their experience was, and making adjustments based on that. He and the team want, as any team putting on an event should want it to be transformational on some level
Yeah,
for the attendee. Now, whether
absolutely.
that's because they met someone on the coffee break, which is where a lot of times that's the magic time, right? The magic happens in the coffee breaks and the in-betweens. You're learning in a session, but the magic can happen and potential collaborations. And, I've heard people say that they've met just one person that changed their business.
Mhm.
And that's pretty impactful, right? I'd come back.
Right. And I really like what Christopher's saying, right? Events and networking have the same thing in common. Don't try to sell, build deep
Yes.
relationships. And
Yes.
I would say that is why I like volunteering at Social Media Marketing World, because I can always go and watch the sessions, but I love the relationship building and getting to know people better. And I'm looking forward to doing that again soon. So for our
Absolutely.
final question, what do you think are some tips for businesses to get started in using events for marketing? Because I think it's like, right, it's like podcasts, it's like live streaming. Everybody makes all these excuses. Everything's got to be perfect. Like, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
So this goes back to first determining what are you trying to do with, why are you considering having an event? What are you going to accomplish with it? And I would say, hire a professional. I mean,
Hire
true.
Megan.
I mean, not necessarily me, no, but definitely, okay. I'll give an example. I got a call last minute to manage, to monitor the Twitter account during a 3-day developer conference in September, like the week of the conference. And so my first question was, why are you just asking me now? Like, what have you been doing? And it turned out they got some sponsorship money that they hadn't anticipated. So, but these are like developers and volunteers just putting together this conference, doing everything. And what they came to realize is they didn't really like planning events. They liked like determining what the program was going to be and what the education was, and the code of conduct and all that kind of stuff. They enjoyed, I think, that part, like creating it, but making it happen was another thing. So do not underestimate how much time it's going to take you, because it will take you 3 times longer. It's like anything, like a developer will say, a developer tells you when your app or when your website's going to be done, just triple it. It's same thing with contractors, right? Isn't that the rule of thumb? Like, your bathroom remodel is going to be done in 3 weeks. Yeah, okay. 3 months later, but yeah, so it's super time intensive because there's just so much that has to get done. Aside from determining what they're going to get out of it, you got to get a venue, and you got to be realistic about how many people you're going to have, because you have to give an estimate on that. And you have to food and beverage. And these are all things that you have to guarantee, typically. And so, you might not make money the first time, and that's okay, so long as you understand that going in. Have someone project managing it, or at least even helping you on the outset to source venues and help you create the framework. But I would say it's definitely worth that. And typically, a planner they're going to charge a percentage of the budget, so that no one is feeling, like the whole trading hours for work thing is not an issue. And then your companies are incentivized. I haven't talked much about this, but sponsorships. I mean, every event should have someone getting sponsors for it, and that's a win-win, because obviously you need money to help put on your event, but also people need the things that sponsors are providing, right? We need tools and all that kind of stuff, or whatever it is. If you're selling widgets, we need people who sell widgets,
right,
to exhibit at these shows that we go to,
right.
And then and develop an online community around the event, like we've talked about. That's real important. And I did my master's thesis on the value of a face-to-face versus online communication within the context of trade shows. Wow. Because after 2008, there was this period of time where they were like, oh, we're just going to take everything on. We can just do it online. That's same. And there were companies providing this ability to exhibit. So it was kind of like a virtual exhibit. I wanted to do it on meetings and events as a whole. And really, the sentiment and all of that, like the survey and all of that, ended up having to do with, that can be applied to events as a whole. But it was around the relationship building and the commerce, because it is about both. And it's really interesting to see what people think happens online versus face to face. And the bottom line was, it's a combination of the two.
Right.
Nurturing those relationships online before seeing them in person, and then following up after.
Right. Well, then it's always interesting when how they appear online isn't what they're like in real life. Right.
I'm telling you, man, your brand, like this is how I look.
Yep.
You'll see me this way in person. You'll see, I haven't tried to have my avatar, whatever my picture is, look like who I am. There is somebody who wears a Dumb and Dumber outfit throughout world to and he gets seen, but he's sure not dressing that way in his business life.
Right.
So you want to be memorable, but you want to be memorable for the right reasons, right?
Right. Right. Well, Megan, this has been amazing. I'm so glad you could join us. And Tim, we wish you could have joined us today.
Yes.
Hopefully, you get fully healthy, because we hope to see you in sunny, hopefully warm San Diego.
Yeah, it was like 72 degrees yesterday.
That's what I like to
So
hear.
I'm not responsible for the weather, though, because
Oh, we won't blame you. Don't
it,
worry.
it could take a turn at any time.
Right. So
So
make sure you subscribe to the Making It a Marketer podcast on iTunes. Also, follow Megan. Where's some other places you want them to connect with you?
So I spend the bulk of my time on Twitter these days. So, and it's at Megan Powers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we can connect on LinkedIn and stuff too. I mean, this is such a big subject. Like we could talk for hours and hours. There's a reason I have a podcast talking
Right.
about
Right.
because there's so much involved. But I will say that the value of what happens face to face can't be beat. And I think I proved that. I was actually wrote my thesis to try to prove a living theorist wrong. And there's a really fun story behind that if you ever want to hear it.
Oh yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on. And I look forward to seeing you and hopefully a lot of these people who are watching and listening in person in a few days at an event. What?
Yes. Awesome. Thanks, Megan.
All right.
We'll see
Thanks
you
so
guys
much.
next week. Take care.